In this chapter, one garden snake, one man, and one woe man things up for everyone, forever. But this was no ordinary serpent, a snake so unsnake-like that it didn't act like a snake, or possibly even look like a snake. Allow me to explain. Apparently, this particular Reptilia squamata was at the top of his class at Animal High. He was essentially valedictorian, president of the speech club, and lettered in track and field, because legs, if verse 14 is any indication. Stick around to find out. Hello, I'm Bob Smearfack, but not really. This series is designed for theological seminary students with approaching exams who have not had time to read the Bible, and for fundamentalist landlords who want to study the textbook method for serving an eviction notice. Genesis chapter 3. Let's go. We know a bit now about what this snake was. But who was he? As members of the church, we know without question, that he was the embodiment of Satan. But if you're a modern biblical scholar with far more education than is good for you, your studies have told you that the ancient Hebrews had no concept of the devil as a single entity. The word Satan was used to describe any accuser or adversary. And the idea of the guy with a P.O. box in Dante's Ninth Circle of Hell didn't coalesce until around the 1st century CE, when he was retroactively assigned to serpent duty in Genesis 3. Whatever. Satan, cosplaying as a snake, flaunted his debate skills with the woe man across a broad range of topics, including ethics, philosophy, and nutrition. His opening gambit was, for real, did the Sky Man actually tell you there was a bark-enclosed, leaf-shedding plant in this orchard that is not on the approved foods list? The woe man replied, it's an open menu in the theme park, except for one woody plant growing in the middle. God put a big skull and crossbones on that one. Ingestion or even skin contact, and will expire. Once again, we may wonder what the man and woe man's understanding of death was, since they didn't know anyone who had ever died. Unless it was included in the fine print in the big man's health advisory. Maybe they didn't understand, which was why it was so easy to convince the woe man to order dessert, because the reptilian whiz-kid needed only a single rebuttal. Nay, milady, see, the Sky Man is holding something back on this. The moment you decide to snack on this juicy fruit, you will attain maximum awareness. Then you'll be just like him, able to tell the difference between being a mensch and being a dick. Can you dig it? Apparently, her answer was, yes, I can. Because when it clicked for the woe man that this juicy pulp was going to taste good, look good, and had the mind-sharpening power of ginkgo biloba, she sampled. But clearly, Adam wasn't far away, because she handed him one and he went to town. Now, to say that their eyes were opened was perhaps understating the effect it had on them, because they suddenly got the memo. Based on what happened next, one can surmise that at the top of that memo was penis, vagina, and breasts. And FYI, everyone can see yours. What's not clear is who they were exposing their genitals to, since this is the only breeding pair of Homo sapiens in existence. What is clear, however, is that they were embarrassed, because they immediately embarked on a joint design/tailoring project that resulted in the first ever fashion line. The Fig Leaf Apron. What's not clear is whether these aprons were full wraparound or more like David Lee Roth-style assless riding chaps. But what is clear is that no sooner did they finish making them than God dropped by for an unscheduled late afternoon stroll. And when they heard the Sky Man talking, they dove into the foliage, demonstrating the first recorded use of camouflage. A spectacularly failed attempt, but they couldn't have known that this God person could see all the way across the universe, right into their very protons. Mankind would soon learn that he was watching everything, all the time, from every angle, and recording it all so he could play it back for you later in a surprise initiative he was planning called Judgment. Being the beginning, almost everything that happened was a first, and God laid down the first ever rhetorical question. Adam, my man, where you be? So Adam buckled and spilled everything. I heard you talking out there in the orchard and I got scared because my genitals were exposed, and I gotta admit, I tried to dodge you. Evidently, the Fig Leaf Apron line was minimalist, if not fully revealing. But God intensified his line of questioning. Who'd you get this exposed genital thing from? Did you eat something that wasn't on the kids' menu? So Adam reacted, checking off another first ever. He threw the woe man under the bus. He said, that thing you made out of my ribs for me to hang out with, she handed it over and I nibbled at it. So God cross-examined the woe man. He said, "Tell me what you did." She said, "Hey, the snake man got up inside my head and got me all turned around, so I ate it." Then God turned to the reptile and ripped him a new one. He said, "That's it for you. You are demoted below cows and every other animal in this joint. You can go slide around on your stomach and eat shit till we're done with this whole thing. And another thing, I'm going to make that woe man hate your guts. And all her kids are going to hate snakes. Then there's this one Christ guy I haven't even put on the playing field yet. I'm going to impregnate one of the woe man's descendants with this Christ fella, and then you're going to annoy him for a while, but then he's going to go all Samuel L. Jackson on your motherfucking ass. Now drop and slither." God didn't say it exactly like that, but he used words of at least equal gravitas. So that's how it all sorts out. By the way, we can infer from God's order to slide around for the rest of its life that the serpent lost its leg privileges. What's not clear is, if the God-man knew Satan was occupying the snake only temporarily as a vehicle, why he thought punishing the entire suborder of Serpentes would be an effective solution. But what is clear is, oh, never mind, I don't know. But it was no skin off Satan's nose, as his use of the snake's body was more of a one-night stand and less of a committed relationship. One can imagine the rest of the now legless snakes wondering if he would ever call again, without the benefit of a concerned best friend who could gently break the news to them. He's just not that into you. Then God had words for the woe man. "I'm going to exponentially make your life suck. And out of all that suck, you're going to painfully force other people into this world directly through your vagina." She may have been just now finding out what that thing was supposed to be for, although presumably it was the same organ she would have used for the same purpose if she and Adam hadn't taken a moral spill, since God directed them to be reproductive in chapter 1. We can only assume the difference would have been she wouldn't be screaming for an epidural, or shouting at Adam, "You did this, you asshole." But God continued, "And I'm going to give you the hots for that dude who threw you under the bus, who I'm also going to totally put in charge of you." Anyway, Adam may have been thinking at this point, "Am I off the hook?" But God opened up a new can on Adam. He said, "Because A, you listened to her, and B, you ate the food I said don't eat that food. Then C, because of you, I'm going to turn all your topsoil to shit and make it hard for you to grow the stuff you're going to eat while you're sitting there crying. You get me? And while you're picking it, you're going to stab your fingers on really pointy things and get burrs stuck in your pants. But you're going to eat that bread while you sweat your ass off until you rot your way back into the dirt. Because that's where I got you from. That's what you are, and that's what you're going to be." And so it becomes clear upon finding out that they weren't going to die that particular day, that this death of which God spoke was a milder form of death than the death we risk our lives to avoid every day in the modern world. It would appear that the snake had been straight with the woe man on that one. Conversely, we don't have the same level of clarity regarding Adam's knowledge of what bread was, or how to make it, since he'd only known a fruit diet up to this point. It's conceivable then, while receiving his sentence, he made a mental note. Look up bread. But it would seem that Adam found this the perfect time to name his spouse for some reason. It's possible that after naming thousands to millions of animals, he'd lost his creative flair, which might explain why he took such a literal approach. Eve, while not imaginative, was nothing if not apropos, roughly translating as person through whose vagina all the other people were forced. Meanwhile, regarding the newlyweds' fig leaf line, maybe the cut was too provocative, maybe it was the durability, but God was clearly not a fan, as he busied himself designing his own fashion line. It was definitely a bold statement, weaving the epidermal layers of dead animals into fabric. One might reasonably assume that some creatures who just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time were not pleased with Adam and Eve's choices, let alone God's choice of materials. God's promise of death may have included a long-lost parenthetical phrase, "For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely cause a lot of animals to die." Cut to a meeting between the Lord God and two other participants, still unidentified, but to be more formally introduced over the next 1,000 or so pages, in which he expressed concern over the fact that he had created a universe focused around two people who had not only just had their minds blown so wide open they could now anticipate the future consequences of any action they took, but who were also living in a theme park at the center of which grew another special tree, the eating of whose fleshy seed pods would make them immortal all over again. Fail? Not possible, according to the newly minted laws of omniscience. He knew what choices he had planned for them to make of their own free will all along. He had the situation firmly in hand. Which brings us to Phase 2, Eviction. God shuttered the theme park and booted their asses into the now fallen real world. Adam's new job? Still a type of botanical caretaker, a farmer, but the difference was not unlike being fired as groundskeeper at the Magic Kingdom in Orlando and transferred to the Everglades. It was not an ego boost. One can imagine a deflated Adam standing outside the now locked turnstiles, kicking himself. Shit, man, I had it made. Then God put the old place under lock and key by assigning a guard post of winged angelic badasses to the east entrance. Perhaps Eden was inaccessible from every other direction. It's hard to say, but he didn't stop there. He set up a sharp steel blade with fire pouring off it, which could point in any direction. Another first ever, the first fully automated 360-degree guard turret. In any event, it prevented anyone from approaching the still off-limits, still unsampled Tree of Life. This flaming sword has never been found, but possibly it outlived its own necessity, because the tree has never been found either. Maybe the Tree of Life died, which would be the first ever recorded display of irony. Next in this series, we'll move on to Chapter 4. Spoiler alert, the Holy Scriptures have to make a surprisingly early move from broadcast to cable. Not because of the first ever recorded case of murder. Violence is okay, but because of the sex. People start screwing each other in Genesis 4 and do not stop until Revelation 22. As always, I'm not a religious figure, but if you want me to save you or damn you to hell, I'll do my best.